Discover the incredible, heartwarming ways Native Americans stayed warm revealed after 200 years. Sarah's heart raced as she stood at the edge of the town park, the winter wind biting her cheeks like a reminder of the harshness that surrounded her. The tiny, rusting swing set creaked in the wind, and she tightened her scarf, pulling it closer to her throat. Memories flickered through her mind like fireflies on a warm summer evening, her grandmother's stories of warmth invented in winter, passed down through generations. Little did she know, the lessons were about to emerge again at a time when she needed them most. Her thoughts were pulled back to the present as she glanced at her modest apartment above the corner store, where she and her daughter, Lily, had spent countless chilly evenings cozying up together under warm blankets. The framed photos on the walls captured smiles, hugs, and laughter, the love of a close-knit family now navigating the bitter cold of life on their own. But lately, worry clouded her mind. Bills piled high and the second job at the diner was taking a toll. Then Mr. Leclerc's illness hit. The sweet old man had been a steady presence in her life, a storyteller at heart, whose tales of resilience sent warmth soaring through her soul. Each visit was a gift, a moment where the world outside melted away, and the value of community surged back to life. But now, confined to his bed, the warmth of his spirit flickered. Sitting beside him, she felt an urgent tug at her heart. How could she leave him behind, knowing a new job would mean abandoning the very community that had carried her through hard times? "Sarah," he wheezed, his voice soft and shaky, "each winter can teach us something if we just listen." The warmth of understanding filled her even as the chill clung to her bones. His tales of how the Native Americans thrived on sustainable practices during winter ignited a fire in her soul. They lived in harmony with the earth, using what they had to create warmth not just in their homes, but in their communities. With each story, Sarah felt her spirit soar, pulling her deeper into an idea that spun in her mind, weaving hope into the dense fabric of uncertainty. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sarah dove headfirst into understanding those traditions, seeking out local indigenous leaders who shared stories that resonated with her deeply. With each visit came an undeniable connection, an awakening that could heal more than just her own struggles. She began to see tangible changes, as families gathered to share meals again, strengthening ties that had weakened over the years. Laughter mixed with the scent of hearty soups wafting through the air, warming hearts even as snow piled outside. But that warmth met a chilling resistance when the town called a meeting. Voices clashed. Anger frothed at the surface. Sarah's heart constricted. And yet, standing amid the chaos, she found her strength. "We must learn from one another," she said, the silence hanging in the air like a breath held. Her heart raced as she gazed into the eyes of her neighbors, some wide with surprise, others scrunched in disdain. Would they let go of prejudice and embrace wisdom? As the meeting continued, all Sarah wanted was to see the walls between them crumble. Would the flicker of change be enough to ignite a warmer future, or would it spark more division? Hope flickered in her heart, preparing to take flight. One breath, one moment, one decision hung in the air, a chance to continue the legacy of love for her daughter and her community. Whatever the outcome, she was ready to fight for them all. The tension in the room was palpable. Sarah felt every heartbeat thumping in her ears as eyes darted between her and the small group gathered in protest. Arguments clashed like the sound of winter hail against the windows. She swallowed hard, her palms sweaty against the cold wooden table. This was about more than survival. It was about hope, about letting the warmth back in. "Listen," she said, her voice breaking through the protests. "We can learn so much from each other. The stories they've shared, the traditions that have kept us alive for centuries, they can guide us today." The room quieted, if only momentarily. She caught a glimpse of Mr. Leclerc in the back. Though frail, his presence was strong. He nodded, urging her on with his eyes. You say you want to change this town, yet you cling to your fear like it's a warm blanket. What if we take this winter and turn it into something beautiful together? Mr. Leclerc's stories aren't just folklore, they're teachings of survival and brotherhood. A few faces softened, but others hardened in skepticism. The murmurs swelled again, and Sarah felt the pulse of anxiety swell within her. Why was it so hard to see the strength in unity? She thought of Lily at home, and the lessons she wanted to pass down. What if your children could sit together and share meals instead of keeping to themselves? What if they could grow up knowing the stories of people who lived to thrive even through the hardest winters? Someone at the back shouted, "But that's just the past. It has nothing to do with our future." Or does it? Sarah's voice rang out, echoing off the walls. The past is a part of us, every layer, every moment shaping how we build tomorrow. She took a step forward, heart racing as she searched for understanding in their faces. I know times have changed, but our core values haven't. We want safety, love, and connection. Just like those Native American families who built warmth not only in their homes, but in their hearts. Let us honor their legacy. We could start a community project, a winter feast that celebrates us all. Imagine the joy in sharing cultures, recipes, stories, the fire that brings us together. A wave of whispers began to ripple through the crowd. To Sarah's relief, some were nodding, their resolve softening. It was a flicker, but it was there, a tempest of hope breaking through the icy tension. "All right, I'm in," a voice called out from the front. A small woman with wide eyes and a determined chin, who had remained quiet during the meeting, stood up. "Let us try it. What can it hurt?" The room shook with murmurs of agreement, building momentum. Others began to voice their support, igniting sparks in the air. Could this really be happening? But just as quickly, a booming voice arose from the back, cutting through the swell of optimism like a chill wind. "You think this will solve everything? The problems run deeper than a meal." Their smiles faltered. Sarah felt her heart plummet. Doubt flooded the room again, threatening to smother the warmth that had just begun to rise. "Love doesn't conquer all," Sarah whispered as she looked down at the floor, "but could it at least knock a few walls down?" As she met the skeptical gaze of the dissenting voice, she knew deep down this was just the beginning. Could she help transform this community's fears into understanding? Her resolve steeled within her heart, but the challenge loomed larger than the mountain of snow piling outside. With the meeting still unresolved, Sarah's mind raced with ideas, hopes, and fears, her heart aching to weave this tapestry of change. She took a deep breath and turned back to the circle. "We can warm our hearts together, but how?" As she waited for answers, the air buzzed with possibilities that hung like freshly fallen snow. The room was thick with tension, but somewhere, hope flickered just below the surface, daring to ignite. Would they embrace the warmth or turn back to the cold? The question lingered, unanswered, setting the stage for a winter that could change everything. The air in the room seemed electric, crackling with possibility, but the skepticism weighed heavy like thick winter clouds. Silence stretched for what felt like an eternity after Sarah's question. She could see the struggle in their eyes, fear and hope clashing. Then, finally, someone broke the silence. "Maybe we can start small," a voice emerged from the back, timid but steady. It belonged to Mr. Leclerc, who had remained a quiet force in the corner. "Why not gather around a fire? Share a simple meal and a story like we used to," before he let the sentence hang, unfinished, and gently pulled the memories from the past like a delicate sweater unraveling at the seams. Nods of agreement rippled through the crowd, sparks of connection igniting as the idea settled in. Sarah felt a surge of warmth as others began to chime in. "What if we ask people to bring a dish that means something to them?" A younger man suggested, his eyes bright with enthusiasm. "Food that tells a story from your family? That could get everyone involved." Sarah's heart lifted, her pulse steadying. "Yes. It's not just about the food, it's about the moments we'll create together." She glanced around the room, feeling the cautious hope mingle with uncertainty. "But how do we do this?" A woman in the front asked, arms crossed against the cold. "What if no one shows up? What if it falls apart?" "Let us spread the word," someone in the back proposed. flyers, social media. If we share what this means to us, people will come. As ideas bounced around, Sarah's confidence began to solidify. Exactly, she said, voice filling the room with assuredness. This is just the beginning. We'll be gathering stories, connecting in ways that go deeper than just this one meal. Let us reach out to neighbors and families. Make this a real community celebration. A surge of energy began to fill the air, voices rising together, igniting a new spirit in the room. But what if the very people we are trying to engage resist? The dissenting voice from earlier shot back, gruff and unrelenting. What if they refuse to join us? Sarah felt a chill creep back into her heart, but she pushed through. Then we keep trying. We show them, through our actions, our willingness to connect. Change is hard, but if we work together, we can create something that lasts longer than one meal. It can be a healing process. The room buzzed with murmurs, a storm brewing between the fear of failure and the sweet allure of hope. Faces brightened, and voices grew louder with determination. Sarah, you're right. Let us change the narrative. The small woman from earlier spoke again, her resolve shining brightly now. Let us show that we can be more than just the scars of this past. Within that moment, the spark of unity began to glow brighter than Sarah had dared to hope. She could visualize the feast, the shared dishes laid out like a quilt, each family's part woven into the fabric of their community. As they began to outline plans, laughter cut through the heavy atmosphere, lightening the weight of what had felt impossible. For a moment, they were just a group of neighbors, ready to take a leap of faith into the unknown. But right then, as their excitement built, Sarah caught a shadow flicker in the doorway. A figure stood just outside, eyes catching the warm glow of the room's light. It was a familiar face from the past, one she thought had long walked away. Her stomach dropped, an uneasy knot forming. Is that? She started, frozen in disbelief. What would this unexpected arrival mean for their plans? Would it bring more division, or could it open a door to healing? A storm of questions rose within her as the figure took a step forward, the tension in the air thickening once again. The figure paused, half lit by the warm glow spilling from the room. Sarah's heart raced as she squinted, trying to penetrate the shadows. The familiar face slowly materialized. It was Jamie, a childhood friend she hadn't seen in years. Memories tumbled through her mind, days spent playing in the sun, sharing secrets, and promises made in innocence. They had drifted apart after the fallout, like autumn leaves swept away by a gust of wind. Jamie? Sarah finally whispered, her voice barely breaking through the buzz of the gathering. The room fell silent, heads turning, eyes wide as they caught sight of the newcomer. Jamie was older, the lines around her eyes telling stories of life lived fiercely. This was a woman shaped by experience, but here she stood, rooted to the spot, uncertainty etched on her face. Sarah, Jamie replied, her voice steady despite the quiver in her lips. I heard about what you're trying to do, and I wanted to come see for myself. Tension hung in the air like mist. Sarah could hardly breathe, torn between joy and fear of the unexpected confrontation. What do you think? She asked, desperation creeping into her voice. The eyes of the community were on them, the atmosphere thick with curiosity and apprehension. Jamie stepped forward, the floor creaking beneath her feet as she surveyed the crowd, taking in the vibrant diversity, the old faces, new faces, people whose paths had crossed in ways both painful and hopeful. I think sharing stories is important, she said finally, though the vulnerability in her tone was raw. But you can't just pretend the past doesn't exist. We have scars that run deep. A wave of murmurs rippled through the room. It was a mixed response, some nodding in agreement, others looking pensive, as though grappling with the ugly truths of their history. Sarah swallowed hard, feeling the weight of Jamie's words. I know, she replied, her voice unwavering. But isn't that why we need to do this? To find a way through the heartbreak? We need to embrace those scars so we can move forward, together. Jamie's expression softened slightly, but it was her next words that shattered the glassy surface of Sarah's growing confidence. Do you really think everyone will be willing to share? Will they trust us after everything that has happened? The questions resonated like a drumbeat in Sarah's chest. Would she be able to win over the skeptics, including Jamie? Could she turn those doubts into a chorus of voices raised in unity? Her ideas tumbled around in her head. We can start with small stories. Even just our own. She gestured towards the others, hoping to draw them in. I mean, every scar has a story, a reason behind it. If we can express that together, who knows what healing can begin? The atmosphere shifted, and one by one, glances grew softer, more thoughtful. Jamie's eyes glimmered with a hint of reflection, the wall she had built around herself showing sign of fissures. We could start with a small gathering, just a few of us, to share what's hard and what's good, Jamie suggested hesitantly, the tension beginning to crack just a little. Sarah's heart surged at the flicker of agreement. Exactly. We can build a bridge from our stories. Let it start here. With light and honesty. As the crowd began to discuss the possibilities, laughter and voices rising again, Sarah caught a spark in Jamie's eyes, a small flicker of hope. They could change the narrative together. But just then, a loud bang echoed outside, a sudden interruption that sent everyone jumping. The door burst open, a group of people on the threshold, faces heated with urgency. What's going on? One shouted, tension spilling back into the room as confusion set in. Sarah's heart raced once again. Had their moment of connection just been shattered? What storm lay ahead now that they had opened the door to change? Sarah felt her stomach twist as the new arrivals surged into the room. Their intensity was palpable, a fierce energy that made her instincts scream. The laughter and light moments she'd just shared with Jamie faded like daylight during a storm. She scanned the group, noticing the furrowed brows and clenched jaws, a confrontation brewing in their eyes. Did you hear what happened at the bridge? One of them gasped, breathless, as if they'd run all the way. A murmur rippled through the crowd, dark and anxious. What bridge? Sarah asked, stepping forward. She needed to understand this urgency. Someone's blocking it, the woman insisted, her voice shaky but urgent. They're trying to keep us from getting supplies. I think it's, she hesitated, the weight of fear pressing on her, one of our own. What do you mean? Jamie's voice cut through the rising chaos, a beacon of steady resolve. The newcomer glanced at the others, unsure, before finally saying, it's a protest. People think we shouldn't work with the council anymore. They want to fight instead. Fight? Sarah echoed, the word tasting bitter on her tongue. Memories of old conflicts bubbled to the surface. Just as she thought they'd taken a step toward unity, now there's nothing but division and anger looming on the horizon. Is that really what we want? Sarah asked, her voice trembling even as she tried to steady it. We should be coming together, not pushing each other further apart. Well, it's too late for that, the newcomer shot back, anger flaring in her eyes. You don't just forget the past, Sarah. People have suffered, and they want to reclaim what's theirs. They're trying to be heard, Jamie added, her tone fragile yet firm. But fighting in the streets is not the answer. Feeling the weight of the crowd's eye, Sarah stepped closer to Jamie. We need to understand one another. If we're going to share our stories, we have to start from a place of peace, don't we? Not everyone believes that, another voice rang out from the gathering. Sarah's heart sank, the room divided again. They'll never listen as long as they think we're on the other side. What's the use of coming together if trust is shattered? The tension hung thick as uncertainty threaded through the crowd. People shifted uncomfortably, thoughts racing as emotions collided. Jamie's face was a mix of fear and determination. Maybe we can't all agree now, but isn't that the point? We can share why we're angry, sad, and also why we need hope. Suddenly, the door swung shut behind the newcomers, casting shadows around them. Sarah felt a chill creeping in, a sense of foreboding. The laughter had vanished, and the fragile thread of hope they were weaving felt like it was dangling by a thread. What kind of gathering are we even having? A voice called out from the back. It echoed Sarah's doubts, exposing the fractures. She stared at Jamie, silent surrender written on both their faces. Maybe we need to meet them where they are, Sarah finally spoke, her tone resolute. If they're out there, expressing their pain. Let us go there. Talk to them. No walls, just honest conversations. As the realization spread among her group, a collective hesitance joined with something greater, a yearning for clarity. But just then, the door rattled, the sound of boots thundering from outside sent chills up her spine. Sarah turned, gripping Jamie's arm. What if they come for us? She whispered, dread pooling in her stomach. What storm had they opened the door to? With a deep breath, Sarah prepared to confront whatever awaited them outside, aware that the real challenge was just beginning. Would the past swallow them whole, or could they finally start to make their own future? The door rattled again, louder this time, the sound twisting Sarah's insides. The thundering boots pushed against the walls of her mind like a raging storm, chaotic, unnerving, unstoppable. She held Jamie's arm tighter, feeling the warmth as a lifeline. Stay close, Jamie said, her voice firm though laced with uncertainty. They were all in this together, for better or worse. As the door burst open, a group of figures poured inside, faces flushed with urgency and anger. Their eyes darted around the room, taking in the gathering and the atmosphere that swirled with tension. Sarah! One of them shouted, cutting through the noise. It was Mark, a familiar voice tinged with fear. You have to see this. They're blocking both sides of the bridge. It's more than a protest, it's a standoff. What are we going to do? Someone else cried, desperation cracking their voice. The air turned electric. Sarah could see shadows stretching across familiar faces as fear took root. What do they want? Someone echoed, almost pleading. Justice. Mark barked back, his anger rising. They want the council to acknowledge them. Recognize their pain. They're tired of being ignored. It's not just them, Jamie interjected, her voice rising against the clamor. We're all tired. If we don't act now, it'll only escalate. Violence is the only language they understand. Mark shot back, turning to the group. They're angry, and we should be too. Have you forgotten what we've been through? The ground beneath Sarah felt unsteady. She took a step back, trying to breathe through the whirlwind of emotions around her. I haven't forgotten, she said finally, her voice a gentle calm. But adding more hate will just drown us. We've lost too many already. We can't allow that uncertainty to infect us. Let us try to listen. They want to listen, one voice cried in frustration. Not after everything. You think words will change their minds? Talking is the only thing left that we have, Sarah said, her heart racing. We owe it to ourselves to at least try. As silence wrapped its cold fingers around the room, Sarah felt the weight of every gaze, the support, and doubt nestled among them like dark clouds. Okay, Jamie said softly, her voice steadying the group. We need to figure out our next steps. Gather supplies. If we're going to talk peace, we must reinforce our resolve. They need to see we're still invested in this community. What if they come for us again? A young man asked, eyes wide with fear. What if they don't want to talk? They will if we show we're here for the right reasons, Sarah replied, her mind racing. Let us bring food, water. If we truly care, we'll meet them there. Maybe even offer to share our resources if they see us as allies. Hopefully, they'll trust us. A ripple of murmurs surged through the crowd, uncertainty bubbling alongside a flicker of hope. Sarah held on to that flicker, praying it would grow into something brighter. Let us go, Jamie said, determination igniting her eyes. Together. As they began to gather supplies, Sarah couldn't shake the pit in her stomach. She looked back at the door, wondering what awaited them on the other side. Would they finally unite in understanding, or was this just the beginning of an even darker chapter? That uncertainty thrummed like a live wire as they stepped outside, hearts pounding, ready to face the crowd on the other side of the bridge. All of them knew the stakes had never been higher. Would they be able to break down the walls built by fear, or would anger spiral into chaos? Only time would tell. The first gust of wind outside sent a chill up Sarah's spine as she took her first step into the world beyond the door. The crowd before her was a mix of raw emotion, anger, and desperation. They were all there, living embodiments of the tension in the air, a storm waiting to break, Jamie moved closer to her side as they made their way towards the bridge. "We stick together, remember?" she whispered, her eyes scanning the horizon. "What if they don't want our help?" Sarah bit her lip, the question lingering like a shadow. "They'll see us. They'll know we're here." Jamie's voice was steady, but Sarah could hear the underlying tremor. They both felt that this dangerous line they were treading between hope and chaos. As they reached the bridge, the scene unfolded before them. Protesters lined either side, holding signs that bore powerful slogans, calls for acknowledgement, for respect, for basic human rights. Shouts filled the air, rising and falling like a tide. The sound of their voices, angry yet passionate, echoed off the walls of the buildings nearby. When Sarah stepped forward, a hush momentarily washed over the crowd. It was as if they recognized the fire in her eyes, the same flicker of determination that threatened to ignite into a flame. "Listen!" she shouted, her heart pounding in her chest. "We're here to talk. We want to stand with you." Everyone turned to look at her, the whispers starting again, uncertainty dancing like sparks in the air. Mark was by her side, drawing strength from her presence. "But what if they don't want to listen?" he asked, his known fears creeping back. "They might not. But we need to try," Sarah insisted, grounding herself in the moment. "We can't let fear dictate our actions any longer. This is about connection, not breaking. We have more in common than we realize." A young woman stepped forward from the crowd, her expression hardened by experience, eyes wide and fierce. "You think words will change anything?" Sarah took a deep breath. "Maybe not today," she admitted, her voice calmer this time. "But it's a start. Don't we owe it to ourselves to try? I've watched too many good people suffer in silence. We can't let this divide us." The tension in the air didn't ease, yet Sarah could feel a shift as the young woman contemplated her words. Hope flickered in the back of Sarah's mind, whispering that this could be the moment. Suddenly, a harsh voice broke through the cluster of protesters. "You think you can just come here with your supplies and sweep this under the rug? You think you can save us?" The harshness in the voice snapped the crowd back into chaos, and the murmurs returned, louder and more frantic. Some were angry, others confused. "No! We're not trying to save you!" Jamie yelled to be heard above them. "We're trying to stand with you." The noise subsided once more, the power of her words resonating deeply. Could they really bridge this divide? Questions hovered like clouds, dark and heavy. But for every doubting voice, another echoed, "I want change." As the crowd began to murmur louder, Sarah noticed a flicker of understanding in some eyes. It was small, but it was there. Togetherness was brewing in the chaos, and she felt it swell in her chest. The moment felt fragile, like everything could either crumble or blossom. They needed to seize the chance. "Together. We can find a way," Sarah called, the words rising above the din. But would they listen? Would the rifts begin to close, or would the fear rise once more to drown any hope? As the tension held them all in suspense, Sarah's heart raced toward the chance. Whatever might be, she was ready to fight for it. The air crackled with raw energy as the crowd shifted uneasily, and Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. She had opened a door, but whether it would lead to understanding or chaos remained uncertain. She glanced at Jamie, whose fierce determination mirrored her own anxiety. The flicker of hope they had ignited felt more like a candle in a windstorm than a bonfire of change. Suddenly, one tall figure stepped boldly forward from the crowd, silencing the murmurs. His presence resonated like a thunderclap, commanding attention. "You talk of connection," he said, his voice smooth but carrying an undercurrent of challenge. "But what do you really know about us? About our struggles?" Sarah felt a wave of heat rise in her cheeks. This was it, no turning back now. "I may not know all your struggles," she replied, trying to steady her voice, "but I see the pain and the passion. I want to understand. Isn't that a start?" He studied her, eyes narrowed, weighing her sincerity against a lifetime of hurt. The crowd held its breath, hinging on his response. "What do you want with us? Another empty promise?" he countered, his tone heavy with years of distrust. People like you have come before coming to save us, only to walk away once the cameras shut off. Why should we believe you? Mark stepped up beside Sarah. Because we're not here for a photo op. We're here for change. We're here to listen and to learn. His voice trembled slightly but contained a fervor that seemed to pulse through the tension. Well, we need more than just words. A woman shouted from the back, her deep voice sending a ripple through the crowd. We need action. The word action hung in the air, igniting old wounds and newer frustrations. Anger bubbled up, threatening to consume the moment like a wildfire. What if we show you that we care? Jamie shouted over the din. What if we commit to real action? Her eyes searched the crowd, seeking agreement. In that moment, Sarah's heart sank. Could they really deliver on such a promise? She stole a glance at Jamie, who seemed to sense the doubts swirling in Sarah's mind. Tell us what you need. Jamie flung her arms wide, as if trying to embrace the entire crowd. We want to help. Whatever it is, we want to be part of it. The crowd murmured, voices rising in both outrage and curiosity. Sarah sensed a shift. The tide of uncertainty was stirring, becoming something tangible. Hope flickered again, but this time it was accompanied by a tinge of fear. What if they failed to meet the expectations of these strong, passionate people? Finally, the tall man, still waiting, broke into a small, weary smile. All right then, he said slowly, as if weighing each word thoughtfully. What do you really know about our culture? About how we stay warm, not just from the cold, but from the world's indifference? Sarah's heart raced. She could feel the invisible thread of understanding beginning to weave between them, but it was tenuous. What if this moment shattered like glass? Teach us, she said, her voice rising above the noise once more. Show us what true connection means. The man's gaze softened, and for the first time, Sarah caught a glimpse of something else beneath the layers of hurt. A flicker of hope mirrored back at her. The crowd watched, waiting, like a coiled spring ready to jump. But then a sudden shout came from the back. No more talking. Let us see what you're made of. Prove you're more than just empty words. A wave of apprehension washed over Sarah and her group. The challenge had been thrown. Could they rise to it? Or would this moment slip through their fingers, leaving them with nothing but regret? She took a deep breath, eyes blazing with determination. We will prove it, she replied fiercely. You have my word. The crowd shifted restlessly, every person feeling the weight of the promise in the air, and Sarah realized that the real journey was just beginning. When she looked back at Jamie and Mark, they shared a glance, knowing they had to be all in now. But would they figure out how to truly connect amidst the storm of emotions? The answers were waiting. Just beyond the horizon. The crowd seemed to hold its breath, the anticipation thick like fog. Sarah felt it pressing down on her, a weight that urged her to act. She turned back to the tall man, his eyes full of challenge, and clenched her fists, ready to confront their doubts head-on. What do we need to do? She asked, her voice steadying with resolve. She could see the questions brewing in the crowd, tangible and taut. They weren't interested in empty gestures or pretty promises. They craved authenticity. They needed to know that Sarah and her friends were willing to step into their world. Knowledge first, the man replied, nodding slightly. You want to connect? Start by warming your hearts to our stories. We are more than statistics or headlines. We are a living culture. Can you handle that? Sarah glanced at Jamie and Mark, who both nodded. They were ready. Show us, she said, the words feeling like a pact between them. We're here to listen. The man took a step back, then turned to the crowd. All right, everyone. This is your chance. Share what you feel, what matters most to you. He gestured broadly to the group, inviting them to share their experiences without fear. A ripple of nervous energy flowed through the crowd, but the challenge was set. A young woman stepped forward. She was small, but her voice rang out clearly. My name is Nia. I grew up here. I watched my community fight for recognition, for respect. We're tired of being silenced. When I see people like you, I want to believe. She glanced at Sarah before continuing. I want to believe that change is possible. But how many times have we been disappointed? The crowd murmured their agreement. A thick tension filled the air as more voices joined. Each story shared painted a picture of pain mingled with resilience. An elder recounted long nights where prayers for warmth transformed into actual communal fire. A man spoke of his childhood, wrapped in the hugs of stories told beneath starry skies, family bound together not just by blood, but by shared histories. As stories poured out, Sarah and her group listened intently. Each tale stirred something inside them, a realization that connecting meant stepping not just into the lives of others, but into the emotional rawness of lived experiences. They were taking in voices that shook them to their core. Mark leaned close to Sarah, his eyes wide. I never knew. How can we help, Sarah? There's so much to do. I don't know, she said earnestly. But I think this is a start. Listening is so powerful. The crowd began to quiet as the tall man raised his hand again. Now, will you stay for the next part? This is where actions speak louder than words. What do you mean? Jamie asked, her voice fragile with anticipation. He smiled again, a little more openly this time. Let us show you how we stay warm together. This community thrives on togetherness, on actions that break barriers. You want to understand us? Then be part of our life for a while. A sudden excitement buzzed in the air. Sarah's heart soared. Could they really step into the unknown? Beyond the stories, beyond the pain, was there hope waiting there for them? Yes. We're in, Jamie shouted, a burst of energy compelling Sarah forward. What's next? Sarah asked, her pulse quickening. That's just it, the man said, a glint of mischief in his eye. You're going to roll up your sleeves and help us prepare for the winter feast. Are you ready to experience what it means to stand together? The challenge hung thick in the air. They had taken the first step, but the path wasn't just fraught with excitement. It was filled with uncertainty. Could they truly blend into the fabric of this community? What awaited them in the preparation for this feast? As Sarah looked around, she caught the eye of the tall man once more. She felt a flicker of warmth beneath the surface of her doubts. With a deep breath, she stepped forward. We're ready, she said, heart racing. But would they be able to keep their promise? The real work was only just beginning. Would they be able to embrace a culture so different from their own? The winter sun cast a golden hue over the town, a stark contrast to the flurry of emotions stirring in the air as Sarah and Jamie stood at the edge of the bustling preparations for the winter feast. The square was alive, laughter and voices mingling, creating a melody of unity that reverberated through the cold. Can you believe this? Jamie asked, her eyes wide with a mix of disbelief and joy. We're actually doing it. Sarah smiled, her heart swelling with hope. This felt right. They gathered around large tables, hands working together to prepare dishes from different cultures, each plate a story waiting to be shared. The edges of their past, the anger, the mistrust were slowly fraying as they created something beautiful. Days turned into a whirlwind of activity. The community came alive, blending traditions and recipes, forming bonds deeper than mere conversation could have forged. They taught one another the intricate ways of preparation, respect woven through every gesture and word exchanged. As the scent of hearty stew filled the air, Sarah felt something within her circles shift. There was a newfound warmth, an environment where acceptance bloomed. Then came the day of the feast. The square transformed into a horizontal tapestry of colors, sounds, and rich aromas, the warmth of love encasing every soul gathered there. Families decorated the tables, smiles illuminating their faces as they shared stories behind each dish. Sarah glanced over at Mr. Leclerc, his spirit radiating from the small group he was engaged with. I told you winter could teach us if we listened, he had said before, and now, his words echoed in her heart. This was the lesson: family, community, and shared purpose. As they settled into their places, her thoughts shifted to the tall man who had challenged them initially. He stood to the side, observing the scene unfold, a hint of skepticism still lingering in his eyes. Sarah felt a swell of determination wash over her. She stood up and called out, "Everyone! Can we take a moment to appreciate how far we've come together?" The crowd quieted, and she continued, we've taken the first steps toward understanding and connection here. This feast isn't just about sharing food, it's about sharing our stories, our lives, our humanity. Together, we create warmth not just in our homes, but within our hearts and this community. She caught the tall man's gaze. His expression softened as understanding bloomed amongst the crowd, breaking the last traces of doubt. They weren't simply seated as separate families. They were interwoven, a community gathered to heal. The feast commenced, and laughter danced through the air. There were moments of silence as stories were shared, tales of hardship, triumph, love, and resilience. One by one, the walls they had built around their hearts came crumbling down, and as Sarah looked over the communal table, every face beaming with joy, she felt the warmth of connection envelop her like a cozy blanket. This winter had indeed taught them well. Every forkful of food was not just nourishment but a promise that they would continue to listen, learn, and grow together. In that moment, Sarah realized the power of vulnerability, the willingness to reach across divides made by misunderstanding. This feast became more than just an event, it was a turning point, a testament to the healing that could happen when hearts opened. As laughter echoed through the winter air, her heart brimmed with hope. A season once feared for its cold now stood as a reminder that warmth lives where love and understanding thrive. They had turned a pivotal corner, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, illuminating their faces in a soft glow, they came to know one undeniable truth: together, they were invincible. And just as Jamie took her hand, a sense of belonging washed over her. They were not just trying to change their present, they had started to weave a future built on love, trust, and community. This was just the beginning, and it was beautiful. Now, if you felt the warmth of this journey and want to continue exploring these incredible stories, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for change and connection. Don't wait not even one more second to leave a like to feed the algorithm and ensure our community continues to grow. And please comment below with your feelings about the ending and share instantly this story with at least 5 friends who need to feel this transformation in their lives too. The impact starts here, with you.